Seen a copy of the agenda on your chairs and on the notice board beforehand. You'll see that before item 1 there's a statement to be read out by the chairman. I will now read that statement. Following the comment on the agenda, you will note that individuals are now legally permitted to record public meetings. This includes audio and visual recording as well as live streaming / broadcasting. It should also be iterated that the law permits the recording of meetings. It is not a requirement. The official record of our meetings remain as the clerk's minutes and approved by councillors. However, we have been informed that a parishioner intends to record tonight's meeting, hence the need for this timely statement. This is not an agenda item for tonight, as it is a new law and not something the Parish Council is required to discuss. However, as this law is not in line with our current standing orders, it is recommended that the relevant provisions of our current standing orders, which could be taken to inhibit the new reporting rules, be waived. Following that recommendation, Hilton Parish Council will waive all the relevant provisions to enable compliance with the law. This is a recent change and we expect to receive specific guidance on its inclusion within Parish Council standing orders. When we receive this information, the Parish Council's Policy Working Group will meet to discuss the required amendments. As well as permitting the recording, the law gives little restriction on how this information can be broadcast to the wider audience. What happens to those recordings is solely at the discretion of those who make them and handle them. Therefore, all of us at Parish Council meetings must be aware that all or parts of our meetings could be viewed and scrutinised by a very big audience. Parish Council meetings can no longer be considered as just village-wide. Please consider this fact throughout the meeting, and consideration concerns more than just normally accepted standards of language and behaviour. We can no longer be assured that inappropriate comments or mistakes are forgiven and forgotten at the time of delivery. Our meetings will need to be more measured with increased consideration of our actions and comments. Okay, that's the statement completed. Item number 1, to receive any apologies for absence and declarations of interest. Do we have any absences?
We do. Peter Belicki and Simon Perry.
Okay. Any declarations of interest?
I have a pecuniary interest in item 6.1, the payment of bills, namely the payment of the clerk's salary.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Comments and observations from members of the public and to receive reports from the County and District Councillor. Comments from the public should be relevant to items on this agenda only. Do we have any comments from the public?
Yes, please.
Margaret, fire away.
You're going to be talking on 5.1 about the British Legion. Can I just give you a brief explanation of the kind of thing that is provided for people who have been injured, which might be of interest. I went to a Popular Appeal Organisers meeting recently where we were spoken to by a young para who was 31 and had been very severely injured 8 years ago. And he was likely to lose an arm and a leg. He was brought back to Selly Oak wearing only a blanket because everything had been cut off because his body armour was burning. When he woke up in Selly Oak, there were 2 people standing beside his bed from the Legion who had brought with them a complete set of clothes, mobile phone to ring home, toiletries, because he had nothing, absolutely nothing with him, just wrapped in a blanket. And they've been immensely supported ever since. They've employed surgeons to rebuild his leg and his arm. So he's now functioning better. And they have now renovated his kitchen so that it's suitable for him to use because he can only use one hand. And it's the kind of thing that doesn't really get publicised so much. We get a lot of information about the amount of money that fundraisers are earning, but that sort of detail I think is very helpful for people to know in the public domain. lives in Northampton, and he's hoping that he's going to get a job very shortly with the Legion. So it's really good, isn't it, to get an idea of how this money is spent that is raised. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't want to jump in, Graham.
Yeah.
I'm not sure actually if I can ask this question now, having listened to your criteria, but this relates to some correspondence that we've been having with you from the Village Hall about the criteria for making decisions about whether events can be run on the green or not.
Okay.
So, as I understand it, Julian has written a letter, and I've been speaking to him. Unfortunately, he's not being able to come because he's away, and he doesn't know if a response from you is waiting on his mat.
Okay.
So, my understanding is that you've been corresponding, first of all, with Leslie about an application that she's made to hold a dog show, a red setter dog show, and you decided in the last meeting that you weren't going to grant that. And the question which Julian and I have, and I represent him as secretary to the Village Hall, is it would be very helpful to us to know, as it links to some of our business, what criteria you set for, what specific criteria you use when you make such a decision. I'm a little confused because the understanding that I have is that part of the criteria that you've used is that it's from someone out of an organisation outside the village. But, I mean, I think I'd like a bit more clarity on that on behalf of the Village Hall. Because we have events which are attended by a great many people outside the village.
Yep.
So you could just, a bit of clarity.
I won't respond to that tonight because we have sent a letter to Julian. And
you have, okay.
And if it's causing confusion, then I suggest we have a chat.
That would be tremendously helpful, yes, thank you.
So I think there is a bit it's done this, it's got out of hand. And
it would be great for us
if we
to
have a
have
chat,
a chat.
I think we're going to have a lot better.
When Julian gets back, we'll set something up.
But I say we have sent a letter.
Yeah.
So we have addressed his concerns, hopefully. And it's probably best to do a chat with him.
Okay. Do you want to add anything, Leslie?
Well, I mean, the only thing I can add is, unfortunately, I was unable to attend the meeting last month. But I will say, you know, as I've said in a letter, I've lived in this village for 26 years now. I would have been directly involved. It was going to be run exactly the same criteria as I have helped organise and arrange dog shows on this green for probably over 20 years. For organisations such as Feast Week, Village Hall, but also with other organisations involved. And certainly it was the intention of Irish Setter Rescue to contribute money towards the Village Hall, obviously for using the facility, and to donate some money to the Parish Council.
Okay.
And I find it sad for the village more than anything else, you know, because surely, yes, I appreciate you are custodians of the green, but we are parishioners. We live in the village, and what rights do we have? Are we not allowed to? What are we allowed to do on the green?
Right. We'll have a chat. Well, yes, I have to ask you whether you want your names recorded.
Yes, please.
Yes, I do. I'm very happy to have my name recorded, Graham.
Okay.
Me too. Sorry.
Just one other thing. I think what we'll probably need during that chat, because it might form part of the Freedom of Information request, is what kind of events are being held on the green and what proportions of people who attend and don't attend from the village and not.
Yeah,
so if we take it from there, that would be great.
Yeah. Okay. Ian, it's over to you now. District and county. Thank you.
Just a couple of things. Those I'm sure have seen the Rags Row has been resurfaced. I thought you might be interested to know how much that actually cost, because again it took 2 days to do this. Joe will remind me if I get the figures wrong, but I've put it down. Just over £22,000. Okay. Tarmac is very expensive and does have quite an increased cost. 2, for instance, the filming all county council meetings, full council, and certainly the committee that I chair are always filmed by outside people, not employed by the county. So I'm fairly used to being recorded, and I said I just prefer the left side. It looks better on camera. Both Cambridgeshire County Council and Huntingdon District Council are consulting on their budget. I would encourage individuals in this room to go onto the appropriate website and make their comments known about the setting of the budget. It's starting much earlier. We will not be setting the budget, of course, until February time, but this is the consultation with the public about what they see as the priorities are. They are different in style, but nevertheless it asks some very strategic type of questions that you may wish to participate in yourselves, or your family, or your next door neighbour, or anybody else come to that. So we welcome the input from the public on their views about the council tax and where they see the priorities. I think it's well rehearsed that both authorities have to save considerable amounts of money, not just this year but in future years. So it's made on some assumptions, of course, from previous years as well. The question really is at 3.1 and 3.3 on your agenda, item 3. Let me, and I'm quite happy for this to be forwarded, the names of the people who are involved in those meetings and those working groups, please.
I've got 3.1, which is the one you asked about?
3.3. Right. So that could be, Joe could just let me know those names of the people that are involved.
Sorry, can I just, you mean the people that are in the working groups?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the names of the people who are, I'm not aware who's on what.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 2 is to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. This was way back in July because we don't have a meeting in August. These minutes were issued to you guys earlier on. So hopefully you've seen through it and you're all happy. And someone will propose that I sign them and someone will second.
I'll second.
Okay, you're proposing?
Yeah, I'll propose.
Okay, JP and W.
Yeah.
Okay, all's in favour? Would you raise your hands, please?
Yeah.
Okay, that's unanimous. Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Right. Item number 3 is matters arising or carried forward. 3.1 is easements. Update from meeting. Please.
Yes, the easements work group met recently. We're working on a number of issues. We haven't brought anything yet to a conclusion, but we will do shortly, by which time we'll report more fully.
Still an ongoing process.
Yeah.
Okay. Now item 3.2 is fireworks. I'm going to just move that up to 4.1 because it relates to what was discussed at the Finance and General Purposes meeting. So bear with us on that one, please. Item 3.3 is the A14 working group update. I'll just make a few comments on that. We have a press release that we want to issue to the press, both nationally and locally. Now you've all seen copies of that. They were issued yesterday. We have had a few additions. So I don't necessarily need you to agree the wording. I just would like you to be happy that you are okay with this being issued to the press. It's slightly outside what the working group has asked for before, so that's why we felt it ought to come back to council. So, do I have any comments?
I'd be interested to know what form of press release this is going to be, because there are quite a lot of questions in there, and I thought if you write to the paper, it's to announce things rather than ask questions. Newspapers don't normally publish questions, do they?
I would agree with that. I mean, wholeheartedly behind the idea of sending out some kind of statement.
Yes.
But my thoughts on it, and Anne, if you drafted it, apologies if I'm continuing, was Laura tends to ask a lot of questions that it doesn't go on to answer. So it leaves the casual reader no more informed. It covers about 10 different topics in a side of A4, so I would say it could be a little more focused. Whatever the 2 or 3 key issues are that we think we should hit, I would advocate editing it, and well, not shortening it, but focusing it more.
Focusing it. Okay.
And where possible, because it makes quite a few assertions without supported evidential backup. So if you want to stick your neck out into our necks out into the public domain, which I think is a perfectly good thing to do, I think we should have, it should read like a weighty, thoughtful, well-argued and justified piece of communication, and honestly I don't think it is at the moment. So I would support sending something out, but I would ask that we work a little bit harder on the content.
But in principle, producing it, at least we're okay with that. It's just.
I guess what I'm trying to say is if we
I think it's going to be
let's make it really good, because we can't do it every week. So you know it should count, and I don't think it's as.
I think one of the things that we had thought to do before actually sending it was to speak to a couple of journalists, people in the know, and get a kind of reaction from them to see whether, you know, what form they would accept it in, your point really, so that we could actually, I was going to say mangle it, that doesn't seem very technical, but shape it.
It kind of comes across as half a letter to the editor, and half a press release, either one or the other.
I would agree with that, and I think what we're trying to do in a sense is say, look, there are all these unanswered questions and we can't seem to find anybody that will answer them, and we're trying to kind of make that point, but it does leave it kind of dangling a little bit, which isn't necessarily helpful, and I did try in terms of saying what the statements are, the assertions, to hedge my bets a little bit by saying it seems to be, or you know, I'm trying to use words that say this is what we believe without actually saying it's a fact. But some of it is very much factual. So I don't know how we can keep it short and snappy without, you know, adding all the sources.
I think cover fewer issues.
Would you want this to be an article?
Each issue you do cover.
Okay. Would you want this to be like an article in the paper, or is it a letter to the editor or something? That's what I couldn't understand.
No, I appreciate the point. I, in a sense, don't know the answer to that. And what we're trying to do is get out on paper the sorts of issues we want to raise in the public domain, and then check it out with a couple of journalists to get a bit of a steer. But we need to move quickly. So I'm quite happy to do that.
That's going to be my sort of only question or observation. Have you given any consideration to the timing of the press release?
Well, we wanted to
so
get it out
doesn't get swamped by
before
the others, or perhaps make the most impact.
Well, that will be the second point of what I wanted to make a comment on. So, yeah, if you're okay with that. The other thing that comes off that is that it's being suggested that maybe following this, there may be an approach to the chairman for his comments. Normally, if he's speaking on behalf of the Parish Council, he needs to get your approval. So the question tonight is to speed things up. If we do get a bite and someone phones up Peter, would you be happy for him to speak on behalf of the working group, stroke Parish Council, provided he sticks within the boundaries of what...
Peter is on the working group.
Peter's on the working group. There are some boundaries upon which we are opposed to the A14. So as long as he sticks within that and doesn't go branching off into other ideas, are we okay with him speaking to the press?
Yep.
Yeah. I think otherwise you might lose your bait if it takes too long to respond. So I better have a proposer for that we're happy to do that, and a seconder, and then we can vote on it that we're happy for him to be approached and speak.
Are we voting on two different issues?
No, because
one as a whole.
We should.
okay, all right. So we'll vote on the pair. We'll vote that in general, the proposal is that we are generally happy with a press release, but it needs to be focused with less questions. So can I have a proposer for that? Okay, and a seconder? Oh, Willie, I can take the other side. Okay, you got that?
Yeah.
All those in favour? Everyone happy? Doreen, are you with us?
No.
You're upset. You're
Yeah,
against?
Against, yeah.
Against, okay. So that's, however, 6 or 6 1. Okay. And the second point is that if Peter's approached, he is permitted to speak to the press on the issues that we've already discussed. So am I going to propose on that one? You want to propose that? Anne? Okay, seconder? I was looking at you there. Just those seconding. All those in favour? Okay, against? Okay, same numbers. Okay.
Could I just ask one thing, which is when that press release is finalised, could it be circulated to council before it's sent to the press? Not necessarily for our input again, just
No, just for information.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine. That's your problem. Okay, the second thing I wanted to mention under this item is that we have an exhibition planned. Sunday, the 21st of September is the starting date. So it runs 21st, 22 and 23rd. The idea is that we'll put up all the information that we know. Since the last public meetings, we have received some more information, some drawings and bits and pieces, a few letters and things. So the idea was to try and provide an exhibition which would be of interest to parishioners and maybe locals. So that's planned for 21, 22 and 23. We will invite various people along, HA, councillors and etc., in the hope that we get a lot of interest. I would just add that the 23rd will conclude with a public meeting in here. So we have a couple of days to look at the drawings and plans and things, and then we'll have a public meeting on the 23rd, which is the Tuesday. Which comes back to your bit about the press release, is that we need to make sure the press release is out X weeks before that. And we will be doing flyers to make sure that the village is kept aware.
Why X weeks?
Yeah, I
Well, I don't understand that.
getting it out at the time
How
which
many
would
weeks do you
give you
want
the
it?
most impact.
Why not send it out around about that week,
Well, next week one.
or a few days before it, rather than 3 weeks ahead of it?
Oh, sure,
Tuesday.
sure.
Is that the plan?
Yeah.
So you,
However, it depends how many weeks people think you need to put in your diary before you attend.
and if you're offering 3 dates, I think that's pretty.
Yeah.
I think that if you would, if something were to appear 5-6 days before that event, that would probably be better.
Well, that's what we're doing for the flyer.
Unless
It's a press release that we weren't too sure about. The flyer will come out the week before. It's whether we've got a target for press release.
Well, we're going to take some advice on how
Good
to
point.
do something.
Fine.
And if you're hoping that the timing of the press release points more people towards the public meeting, then I would suggest you probably try and get it nearer the dates in question so it's kind of in people's mind. If it's 2 or 3 weeks in advance, then they may not forget.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of,
Life gets in the way.
if it went 2 days from now, it'd rather be floating than.
Sure,
Yeah,
and
right,
it's not
to
going to
some
happen 2
degree.
days from now,
No, I know.
I assure you. So the earliest would be next week, on a good day, and it's already the 1st of September. So.
Can I ask another question, Jen? Is the purpose of that 3-day meeting to help inform parishioners, or are we trying to gather feedback and information and opinion back so that we can use that
Both.
to represent?
A couple of things. The information from Jacobs, although it's not particularly clear, does need to be presented to the village as a whole, so it gives us the opportunity to do that. But it also is a rallying point, again, because some of the details are not what the village has been asking for. So it's to make everybody aware of the impact as the current design stands. We have more detail of that.
And I think one of the things that, in terms of still pushing at some of the fallout, if I put it that way, the 14, the highways folk and planning inspectorate and whoever we've contacted seem to be suggesting it's a volume of reaction that will be listened to. It's no good the parish council saying everybody in the village thinks this or that, because that counts as one. So we do want to galvanise people to act. That's part of the problem.
Okay, that's that.
Thank you.
Next item is item 3.4, Cambridge for Future Transport. You might see it's written around as CFT. Anne's been our champion on that, so I'll just...
So I don't feel much of a champion, I haven't got very far. But where we have got, just to remind everybody, back in December, January last year, there was all that questionnaire went out to everybody in the village about the use of the bus services, because the County Council was reducing its funding for subsidised buses. Now there's only one bus, number 3, on a Saturday that is subsidised in Hilton. None of the other very few buses are. So the bad news is that service number 3 on Saturdays is likely to disappear. In fact, I think that's highly likely to disappear. However, when we looked at the data from the questionnaire, the analysis didn't give us all the numbers, which was unfortunate. But 115 questionnaires in Hilton were completed with, let's see, subsidised bus service users 79, non-subsidised bus service users, sorry, wrong way around, non-subsidised were 79 people and 33 people didn't use the bus and only 3 used the Saturday bus. But a lot of people, and I found this when I went round with questionnaires, people talking to, people who work, people going to school, people wanting to go to Cambridge for entertainment, whatever, all said if we could just have a service that would take us to the guided bus. So on the back of that, I tried in meetings with the Cambridgeshire Future Transport folk to push that point, but as you can imagine, lots of other villages were pushing lots of other points as well. But what they suggested ultimately was to contact the providers. So we've contacted Peter Lee at Whibbett Coaches, and he is going to come to our October meeting. He's very happy to listen to what the thoughts and ideas and proposals we might have. And I've agreed to meet with him next Monday evening. So if anybody else would like to come with me, that would be great. Just to find out what the art of the possible might be, to actually get a bus service to the guided bus. The big issue with it will be timing, because of course it's peak times of mornings and evenings that everybody wants.
Yes.
And if anybody here drives to St Ives of a morning or comes back in the evening, it's a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah.
However, well, let's see what he has to say. He's very willing to talk to us.
Excellent. Can I suggest that we only a couple is probably good enough, isn't it? A couple of
Yeah.
It wasn't too many. Can I suggest that we review our diaries and let Anne know if you're available?
Please, Monday evening, 7:30 at his home in Hilton.
Okay, so that's relatively easy. And then we can make sure that we have at least a couple of attendees there. That's great. Good, thank you.
All right.
Item number 4, which will also include the fireworks, is the results of the Finance and General Purposes group committee that met in July. Now, Stephen chaired this, so if you're happy to lead on this, please, Stephen.
Well, one of the things we did was obviously review the state of the budget. There were 2 particular issues that gathered a reasonable amount of discussion. One was this year's budget for the fireworks, which I'll come back to in a second. The other was the issue of trees and ditches. And the reason that was a particular issue was because the amount of money that had been tabled within the quote, which I'll go through in a second, was quite high, and well in excess of the number we had notionally budgeted within the budget, if you like. So let me just talk you through, and Kieran can chip in, where we are with trees and ditches. We have had a quote from Conway's for all of the work that's required or that ideally would be conducted around the village, excluding the ditches, which comes to a total of £3,660. Now, of that list, Kieran, I think, and certainly in Stott, have prioritised or categorised those £3,660 into 3 buckets, A, B and C, where A are the ones that are most required, for a variety of reasons. And the cost of the category A tree maintenance is 1,545. So 3660 would be the dream number if we could take care of all of it. 1545 is the highest priority for interest, 1300 in the and 815 in the third. So that's how it pans out. In addition to that, we have had 3 quotes from JSC Services to maintain, cut back trees around the ditches. That's Reeves Ditch, the Ware and Sparrow Way. Reeves Ditch, which obviously is probably the biggest of those, comes in at 1,120 as a quote. The Ware, the other side of the Potter Road, £280. Cut back those trees on the far side and the far bank. And Sparrow Way, £840. So at that meeting, importantly, by the way, tree surgery not best done in the middle of summer, so there wasn't a pressing need, to correct myself, what we met in July to have the tree quotes approved, but it was a good time to do Reeves Ditch because the water was low again. For the reasons it's bad for trees, it's good for working in water. So at that meeting, the Finance and General Purposes Committee approved the £280 to clear and cut back the trees on the far side of the Ware, which was felt to be the most urgent of those 3. So we parked all of the tree quotes for discussion in this meeting, particularly the 1545 category A trees, and we parked the Reeves Ditch and Sparrows Way, which together total 1120 plus 840. Someone can do the maths, that would help me. Roughly £2,000 to do both. So that was the discussion about trees and ditches. Graham, do you want to not go on to fireworks yet? Should we talk about that some more? Kieran, you might want to add in your thoughts.
Let's just add a little bit of clarity as to what this actually means. Sparrow Way is a very large growing thicket, which is now swamped one of the old pathways. It would be nice if we could adopt a programme over the next few years of reclaiming that land back next to the church. It's not something really we should do in one go, and in fact the quote here for £840 is really to take the first bite out of it. Reeves Ditch, very expensive, really because of the labour involved in getting the material out of the east bank of the ditch. It's basically got to be dragged through the water. Someone's got to carry it through the water, so it's hard work. Something we might just want to throw in as maybe a second choice. The concern is the outflow of that ditch is kept clear. So we could scale that down to a smaller job just to clear the outflow. But take advice from that on this meeting. I don't have a price for that work, but it'll be substantially less than this. And then just to mention the bucket, as you called it, A, is that's work that really does need to be done. Parish Council doesn't want to be exposed to any disasters. Claims we want to protect our parishioners. That's work that really needs to be done to keep us all safe.
Okay.
And just for completeness, the amount of money that we notionally assigned within the budget for tree maintenance for the year was £2,000.
How much of that's been used? You haven't used any?
None, I don't think, this year.
No, we didn't use all of last year's.
Yeah.
I put that out there. I believe that's
Doesn't
not
really
an
help.
issue.
That doesn't really help.
It's 2,000
It was spent elsewhere,
this year.
unfortunately.
Do you actually want to discuss which tree work we do, or do we just stick with the 280 that we agreed, and then have the additional? Because we haven't all seen copies of the tree work, have we? Or whether we assume we have £2,000 to spend between now and April.
But it seems from the numbers that you've taken us through there that if the top priority ones are just over 1,500, there's the Ware ditch, and then keeping the outflows clear in the others. that's more or less your budget,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
Or slightly over potentially.
Sorry, can you run it past me again?
One
Yes.
four, four, one
Yeah,
five,
I've got the
four.
one, so it was what did you say?
what I'm saying is that if you do the top priority ones, which
Yes.
are urgent for health and safety reasons, plus the wear ditch, which was the 280, and then making sure that the outflows for the other ditches are covered as
Okay.
well, that's certainly going to eat up your £2,000.
Yeah, okay.
So the sort of thing going through my head is, if that's been, which would tend to be a good survey of what's likely to be needed for this kind of autumn, winter, then do we just commit to covering that? And I don't know the priority between the 1,500 top ones and the ditches, but you know, you guys probably do. It's just to commit to doing it, because there's, I'm not sure what else there is to debate in a sense. Those have been identified as needing doing, so.
Are these, sorry, Kieran, are these lump sum quotes as such that it's the fixed price, that's it, or
No,
you do it a long time of the year, could it be more because there'll be more days work
This is
required?
the presumption for the tree work is it's autumn work, so once the leaves fall. Every tree, every individual tree, or trunk of trees, has been identified as a separate price. And the sum total is 1545. If, I mean, there's a couple of things that really, I think perhaps all councillors should review that before making a decision.
Yeah. Come on. Well, I think with that in mind.
Sorry, to just add, and the other thing is that because it's £1,500, we probably should get another quote as well.
Yeah, I hadn't appreciated it was going to be autumn work, which kind of is good news for us because the Ware and Rees Ditch were to be done by a different contractor, weren't they? So I would suggest that that needs to be done ASAP because of the weather.
Yes.
That's not autumn work, is it? I mean,
No,
That's just.
Yeah.
It'll
So
soon fill up. won't it?
absolutely. So if we approve that,
Which one, sorry?
this is going to
The
be
Ware.
the Ware at 280. I'm just proposing.
Yeah.
The Ware at 280, and then I wouldn't want to use all on Reeves Ditch because we're going to end up short, but if we just make sure the outflow is flowing, get a reasonable price for that, or best price for that. If we agree that tonight, then we can get the detailed work of the trees and bring it back to council for October meeting, approve that and still give time for the work to be done during the autumn. And it will give us a chance to also look at the because obviously the budget changes, our accounts change throughout the year. So the longer we leave things, the more complete picture we have. So are we okay with that?
Just for the record, the £280 for the Ware was
Did
voted
agree,
on and approved.
yeah.
Indeed,
And I have
yes,
spoken to
yes.
John. I told him.
Fine. So we're really just
That's
asking,
in hand.
Yeah.
Outflow stuff.
but we're asking for an outflow
Yeah.
as well.
We need a quote for that, don't
Yeah, I'll get that for next meeting.
Okay. But I would have thought he would have wanted to do it before next meeting, wouldn't he?
we? Sooner the better, I thought.
I mean, we know what the alley rate is. He's quite near Stephen.
Sorry, yeah, my point wasn't so much about the trees, it was more about the ditch clearers. If you go in for a long time of the year, it's going to take longer to do the job, hence it's not a fixed price, it's on an hourly rate. So yeah, I think we should
Because
vote on that this evening to give you the authority to go ahead, get that price for the outflow clearance and just get on with it. Otherwise it'll just cost us more a month from now.
You're absolutely right. It was quoted on the basis that it would be done with water level side.
Yeah.
Yes.
But they haven't actually got much lower, have they?
No, we haven't.
There was one time when it was quite low, but
End of July, yeah.
things have changed since. So coming back to the outflow from Reeves Ditch, how do we want to word that? I would have thought that with trust we know what his annual rate is, and bearing in mind he works in a village, we would be able to keep an eye on what hourly rate's being used. Do we set a maximum?
I think that's a good idea.
We have to.
So
we can't
he's-
vote on it unless we set a cap, can we?
No.
Oh,
Otherwise it's an open check.
£150.
150, isn't it £20 an hour?
Yes.
So 160. 8 hours, that's one day, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Are you okay with that?
yeah,
Okay. So the proposal is that we give him the order for 280 for the Ware, to tidy up the Ware, and to tidy up Reeves Ditch outflow to use up £160, or no more than
Cap
100,
off.
cap of 160. Can I have a proposer? Okay, Doreen, second?
No.
Stephen? Can I ask all to vote on that? Are we happy? Okay, right, thank you.
And in the interim between now and the October meeting, then we'll circulate the notes for the trees and we'll discuss it and we need to agree to an October meeting. No later.
Yes, agree. Yeah, fine. Can you just hang a bit for Joe to catch up?
We've already got a management green spaces.
2 weeks' time.
Yeah. Well, that's
17.
So would you normally discuss that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Good. And then you issue it out to us beforehand for the meeting. Good. Okay, thank you. Okay. Right. Moving on.
Fireworks.
Please.
So two components of this. One is 2014's event and the other is the future of Hilton's firework display. They are obviously interrelated. As I think we may have mentioned before, the Town Trust have offered to contribute something in the region of £500 to the cost of this year's fireworks, on the basis that the Parish Council has a plan going forward to ensure that there isn't the same risk of loss as was carried last year. So this isn't something we go back to with every single year that there's a problem or there's likely to be a problem. So park that, I'll come back to the future thing in a second. So then we discussed in the Finance General Purposes Committee meeting what we should set the budget for this year. The budget last year, on which we made around about £500 loss, was £1,700. We are in need of approving the budget for this in this meeting, because if we don't, we will lose our advance purchase discount with titanium fireworks. So we need to agree it. The discussion we had in that meeting went back and forth, but essentially on the basis that we have a contribution on the table from the Town Trust, and on the basis that we are going to organise the event on the Saturday that isn't Hemmingford's firework display, which is not the case last year, and on the basis that we would hope for slightly better weather than we had last year. Remember, it was, and Graham forgot this even though he was looking after the bonfire, it was a howling gale last year, which didn't make it the most pleasant evening to go out. Rain obviously would be even worse, but it wasn't great. So on the basis of that, on the basis that we would still like it to be a decent display, and inflation will have chipped away whatever if we had a static budget, the view of that committee was that we should offer up the same budget, freeze it at £1,700 for this year, and the future plan will come back to in a second. So, same gate take. In other words, we're going to ask for the same per adult per child as last year. Not trying to do something dramatically different this year, because we are proposing to do something rather different next year and thereafter. So the plan for you this year was to avoid Hemmingford, do a decent job around the village of getting advance warming up and advertising the event within the village, which I don't think we did a fabulous job of last year. Hope for better weather, and of course we have the help of the Town Trust. We should mitigate the risk significantly for us. So our proposal to recommend to Council was that we vote to approve a budget of £1,700 for this year's fireworks. If you'd like me to go on to talk about the future before we decide on whether that's a good idea or not, it might square the circle.
I don't think the future is something that we need to vote on, is it? That's an ongoing thing, isn't it? I think we need to vote to be clear we're voting on the monies.
Can I just, it sounds to me like you're saying it was 1,700 last year and we lost 500. We're going to offer 1,700 for again this year. That's our kind of investment in it, hoping that we'll get that paid back. In addition, if the future plans are all right, the Town Trust will give us another 500 this year.
Yes.
Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So effectively we're going to have a ball this year. Now, I don't mean that facetiously, but if we have 1,700 plus 5, that would be well a great display, wouldn't it?
No, we're not spending. Of the 1,700 that we're proposing we spend,
right,
up to £500 of that could be, should
That's
be
what I was trying to
funded
clarify.
by the town trust. So the council's cost would be 1,400. Sorry, I can't even add up today. 1,200. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was trying to clarify. Was it additional? Was it?
No.
I'll shut up now.
But I think the point we were making was that we didn't see why it was so low, because the gate last year was significantly lower than previous years, and that was noted. So the comment was made that if we push it, that this has to work, whatever. Try and get as many through the gate as we can, and based on that, we can then go to the future plan. So this is kind of, I wouldn't say a last-ditch effort, but this is come along and see our fireworks.
I don't think we can underestimate the impact of having this display.
No.
I mean, it is locally, it is easily the most lavish display, if you like.
Yes.
So I'm sure a lot of people from the village will go to it. So theirs is on the 8th, sorry, am I right? This year, Saturday the 8th, and we're planning with the 1st.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
And bonfire night's obviously in the middle of the week.
Can I be a bit naughty and ask you guys who are on the committee to take responsibility for the advertising? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Push it needs. Brilliant. Okay. Come back to me.
I should be able to have it.
Come back on that. You think it's good to me? I should have warned you. It was the point we made, wasn't it, that with advertising we need to encourage everyone to come down. So, okay. So can I have a proposer? Unless any of us wants to discuss what the recommendation was, I'd like a proposer that we spend £1,700 and tell the firework crew that's what they're to spend and no more. Proposer? Okay. Stephen? Oh, just always.
Who's doing what?
I'll certainly second it.
Okay, proposer. It's probably better, yeah. Just so proposes it.
Yeah.
Stephen, second. Okay, all those in favour? Yeah, that's unanimous. That's good, okay. I don't think we need to vote on the gate take yet, because we've got a bit longer before we advertise, haven't we?
On prices at the gate,
In case
we don't need to know.
But at some point you'll have to put the adverts out, and that will.
Or we can deal with it now, get rid of it.
Yeah.
You
Think
it's
about it.
£3. Last year was £3 per adult, £1 per child. That's what we're
Because
suggesting.
Otherwise you've got to come back to council to get that approved. It may affect your advertising.
I think that the principle was that the last thing we need to do this year is do anything to damage numbers.
Yeah,
and put
sure.
the prices might be a false economy, and it's
Yes.
and then price elasticity we can't measure, so it's a real gamble.
Yeah.
And I think no one's feeling richer in their pocket than they were a year ago, I don't think, so our recommendation was leave them where they were last year.
It's one of those things, if you make two changes, you don't know which change it was that affected things. So, again, can I have a proposer that the gates remain the same as last time? Kieran, seconder? Willie? Just. All those in favour? Okay, so the gates the same. So it's a rerun of last year, but a bit more people. A few more people, please. Okay, I think that concludes. Well, do you want to talk about the future?
You want to talk about some view?
Yeah.
Have you got?
Yeah.
Well, it's not necessarily on the agenda. Is it? Fireworks budget and plan going forward? It is. Yes.
All right, so Kieran described this brilliantly. I thought when we first met to discuss this, which is we have two kind of lines going in opposite directions. One is every single year the inflation on the price of the fireworks wreaks its havoc. So every single year we are going up whatever it is, 4, 5, 6, 7% per annum to buy the same firework display. The cost is going up. We don't think that. Well, there are two solutions to that if you wanted to match the outgoings with income. One is to get more people to go at the same sort of price, or the other is to get more money off each of the people that go. And we had made the working party involved had significant discussions around this. And initially thought the best route is to drive more people to the display. Look at having, for example, not we're trying to be as big as theirs, but if we were able to attract more people from surrounding villages and increase the numbers, then that would help us. We also discussed ways in which we can increase the revenue, if you like, on the night, not just on the ticket price. But after a great deal of reflection, the working party came to the conclusion that was the wrong thing to do for a couple of reasons. The first was that an escalation of this kind of event and in fundraising or money taking at this kind of event would compete directly with Feast Week, who are there every year, who don't make a great deal of money out of fireworks night. I think last year Sharon's not originally made around about £200 or so profit, and they work incredibly hard for a whole day setting up and guarding. So not sure that we felt that this desperate need to raise more money because fireworks were going up every single year would be a healthy thing to set alongside our main fundraiser in the village, if you like, which is Feast Week. That was the first thing. The second thing is, although we could advertise it more widely and make it more attractive to many more people, we felt that it wasn't quite what we wanted in the village, and that the staffing and management and security and safety measures that we'd have to put in place and the organisation that would be required wasn't something that was really within the remit of the Parish Council. So to almost begin to set it on a professional fireworks night setting is not what it's always been, and given that it is organised effectively by a team that work with us and by us on the night, I don't think that we're set up and geared up for that. There was discussion also of, you know, the usual issues of, in the middle of the late autumn, of how many cars we would have if we attracted lots of people from outside the village and what damage that might do to our green when the ground was soft, which is not the case so much at Feast Week time usually. So all in all, we all ended up feeling pretty uncomfortable with the idea that we would have to keep scaling it every year to match the inflation of fireworks. We came up with an almost opposite solution. Our real desire is for this thing to feel like a close community fireworks event, not a big bash, but something very family orientated, very Hilton orientated, and perhaps, you know, there's a danger it could grow out of that. We also would love not to have to charge for it. It's a Parish Council organised event. If we could get help from the Town Trust on an ongoing basis, and if we could include a sum, a more modest sum, within the precept, we could perhaps go out and spend, let's say, £1,000, picking a number out of the air, but something in the region of that, or £900, £1,000, for a slightly more modest firework display. Still have Feast Week on board, still have the bonfire. I'd say half of that funded by an amount in the precept, which is obviously irrelevant this year, but could apply in future years. And it really is the only thing, any community event, the Parish Council would sponsor in that way. And maybe half from Town Trust. So it would be a 50-50 venture with them. We'd take half of any losses, they take the other half, or the cost, there aren't any losses as such. Feast Week may well, as they did last year, contribute some of their profit to the Parish Council. Not that we would hold them to that, but they've done it before and would very likely do it again if they could. So a scaled down event.
And buckets on the night.
And yes, exactly, thank you. And the last point was, which is Doreen's point, which is people, if you ask for donations to help, not mandatory admission prices, then people can be very generous. And so we would hope to collect some money on the night from voluntary donations into a bucket. But to stress that the plan would be that this would be a free entry, slightly more modest event, advertised very efficiently through the village and with a real call, as we were talking about a second ago, to come and support your village, and without your support we can't carry on with this, so please come along, entry's free, a very different perspective next year. So in essence, and Doreen and Kieran, please chip in, that was where we ended up.
Yeah,
Okay. Can I then suggest that we park that there now, because it's now out of the domain. If we can wait until results of November and then bring it back to December's meeting when we'll be discussing the precept. So we'll have a chance, we can, you know, if it comes up in, you know, we get letters from parishioners, we have thoughts ourselves, you know, you've laid what is the foundation suggestion, we can think about it.
Just thinking about whether you need to respond to Phil Wood. And that follow up on that conversation, the Town Trust conversation, can that wait that long?
Well, the situation with the Town Trust is for this year.
But it's contingent on there being a plan for the future, right?
I've already outlined that to Phil. Sort of thinking of the work group and what the work group was going to propose to the Parish Council.
And he's comfortable with that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've just we've had an informal discussion about it. He hasn't taken it to the town trust yet. I can do that if you want me to.
Well, if you three wish to talk to the town trust, I don't think that would be an issue.
I just don't want them
with us
to lose interest because there's a huge delay in.
No, I think they're pretty relaxed about it. What they do want to, what they don't want to get involved with is funding something that loses money and then a stopgap. What they'd like to, if we say we're going to change things ongoing and it's going to run in a different way, I'm sure they'll be delighted with that. This year can go ahead as it's planned.
But as that's part of the scheme, perhaps we ought to be talking to Town Trust now, because if they're not at all happy with that proposal, then the sooner...
Well, it's a bit of a cart and horse, isn't it? Right?
Well, exactly.
You could argue it would be good to know that the council's happy before we go to the town trust with it.
Well,
so we don't
it
present something to the town trust that
it need to be a formal approach.
No.
I mean, you mentioned it to us tonight. We're thinking about it.
I think that's...
You mentioned it then.
We just keep
They're
that conversation live.
Yes. Yeah.
And let it go quiet.
Okay.
So it sounds also, if I've understood what you mean by the kind of family community version, is it's maybe an opportunity to encourage children, for example, to create puppets or mini Guy Fawkes and have displays and to do some other things that people could get involved in participating, and that would automatically draw certainly with young ones. Who'd be dragging their parents with money.
I think Guy Fawkes were discussed.
Yeah.
One of the fundraisers.
Yeah.
Obviously after November we'll know whether the village really is interested in wanting it next year or not.
Yeah. But could we try it this year is really what I was thinking. Could we test something and see if it adds a little bit of...
It's a hard one to add, but by all means.
Well, kids are incredibly creative. You come up with something.
Yes, it's what you do with the Guy Fawkes when you got them there, but yeah.
Burn them.
You can't.
No, you can't. Well, I wasn't thinking of burning them. I was thinking much more about a prize.
Can't you burn them?
Give a prize.
Health and safety.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, carry on with the chat and
Definitely the way to go.
come back to us with...
Make it something like more village-centric. Yeah, definitely the way to go.
You'll probably find donations, you'll get as much as...
Right,
tickets.
okay. Item number 5, this is to consider any correspondence, communications received requiring decisions. Item number 5.1 is discuss request from Margaret Shardlow for donation to Royal British Legion Poppy Appeal. Refer to supporting documents. You will see that Margaret has mentioned the cost. Rather than going for wreaths, we're going for crosses, which save us money.
Now, can I explain it?
It's closed now. I'm sorry.
You haven't got it right.
Okay. Fire away.
Do I can't?
Well,
because last year we got 2 as per usual, 2 wreaths, which we didn't use deliberately to save. We thought we would use 1 at least for August the 4th.
Okay. So the wreaths.
But then we decided to keep we reused the previous year's ones.
Yes.
We've saved the new ones from last year for this year.
Right.
And all we really would appreciate is the cost of the cross that we used on August the 4th, which is only £15 to make.
I got that the wreaths were more expensive than the cross. Okay.
So it's saving quite a considerable amount of money.
Right. Okay.
And only the cross, nothing else. And contribution, if you can manage it.
Okay. Just for reference, in previous years we have given
£60 for both the last 2 years.
2012 and 2013 we've given £60. So I'm proposing that we stick with that, unless anyone else wishes to comment or discuss. Really happy?
Why wouldn't you change it?
Fine. Okay. We're talking money, so can I have a proposer and seconder?
I'll propose it.
Okay, Steve, second. All those in favour that we spend £60? You say, okay, so that's a 6-1.
Thank you very much indeed.
It's okay. Okay, moving on to item 5.2, discuss broken bench outside Methodist Church. There is a bench outside Methodist Church which has broken. We've made a slight repair to it and we put a sign on it saying this is unsafe. It looks okay. It looks reasonable. It's not in a shabby condition, but it will need attention. And there's a sign saying that, isn't it? And it doesn't look too rough as you walk past it. So it's not an eyesore, but it does need to be attended. I'm going to propose that we carry this forward and discuss with those concerned. I think we need to discuss with the church, because it's obviously their land. It's our bench.
It's in the church grounds, not in the road.
As far as I understand it, unless they prove it's somewhere else. But we'll discuss with them whether it's in their grounds and also how much it gets used, because it's a bench that's been used from 2000. It's from the millennium. So rather than just say we will replace it regardless, I think we need to just look into it. So we'll talk to church, that's the Methodist Church, and we'll come up with some costs. Costs to repair it, costs to replace it, and bring it forward.
Could I just make an offer, Graham?
Well,
I repaired the bench for the WI. I'd be quite happy to go up and have a look at that, and if I can repair that one, I'll do that as well.
Okay. But the point is, I want to make sure that we actually want the bench, first of all. It doesn't get used. I'm not entirely sure whether it's actually rotted or whether it's been broken by misuse. But you want to discuss it?
I don't know if it's relevant. I think it's over the top of the time capsule, is that right?
Could well be, yes.
Buried underneath that.
Yes.
So
it's definitely millennium.
Linked in with that, isn't it?
And the carving on the back of the bench was done by Mr. Garnett.
Was it?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely carved.
Yes.
He's preserving them.
Which I think it does need preserving. Yeah.
Does anyone else wish to add anything to that? We'll go around getting costs from all of Sunday.
Is it okay, or does it need to be removed in the interim?
I think it's okay to leave it there for the time being.
Safe enough.
Safe enough. I checked it tonight. The repair that we did X weeks ago is still holding up. There's a sign on it advertising people not to sit in it. So I'll have to pursue it.
We'll look at it in October.
Sorry?
We'll look at that.
I'll bring it back in October with costs and see what the church say, how it gets used and whether there are changes. Okay, 5.3, discuss the WE recycling collection and plan for next collection date. Again, you've got that in your supporting docs. You will notice that we raised, or they collected 1 3/4 tonnes of recycled stuff, which I think is quite successful. And as a result, they have asked us to invoice them for £65.52. So, if you wouldn't mind making a note of that. So £65.52 is what we have gained out of it. The only issue, we haven't had any complaints other than there was a question mark about how to pick up from obscure addresses, and they have told us that if you are an obscure address, just phone them up and they will tell their drivers to run around and look for your stuff to be recycled.
I may be the only person who doesn't know, but I didn't know it was happening. I didn't know it had happened, and I don't know what date it happened on. It's not mentioned here, so I don't know why. When did it happen?
Well, it was advertised.
Where? Where was it
He
advertised?
said he put leaflets and things around the village.
It seemed rather a low-key event, so the first one, but I thought 60-odd quid was quite a good
I
thing,
think that's quite good
so if it was sort of
rubbish.
bigged up for the next time.
Yes.
Did anyone see any of the advertising?
Well, you say that.
I don't remember seeing it. I mean, I knew it was happening, because it was July, wasn't it?
It was, I saw a telly on the preview.
Did you?
Well, the thing is that 1 3/4 tonnes was put out for them, so obviously I think we are in the minority for not noticing it.
Not of their old friends.
Obviously there was comment made because he says, did you not see any posters prior to
That was the point.
2 weeks prior?
Wasn't that one of our concerns, that if it was too well advertised for too long, it might attract other people who pick up the stuff rather than the official
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
So all encourage a bit of flighting.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's why they were.
So, if we're all happy, no problems that we've been reported to, we've been asked to suggest a date for the future, 4th, 11th, 18th or 25th of February. Bearing in mind that we meet in February, I would suggest that we have 11 or 18, which is obviously the week after we meet, so we could put it out there, we know about it. So later on in February I go for, if you're happy with that.
If you go with the 18th, the 11th will be the WI meeting.
So you could advise them. And 25 will be too far off, wouldn't it? Okay. 18th?
I think the nearer to Christmas the better, to be honest.
Yes,
Lots of people want new toys, I want to get rid of the old ones.
Okay. So not wishing to...
So I'll go back to him.
Yes, I don't think we need to vote on that because it's nothing to do with us really. We'll go for the 18th, please, of February, if he can make that. We're good? Okay. Item 6, authorise payments of any bills. Now, you all had the issue from Joe, which came out. There are there's a handful of things that need approving.
There's one extra as well.
Which is?
Titanium fireworks, because they actually need payment when we place the order.
Well, that will be okay because we've agreed that.
Yeah.
Right then, yes, okay. Are there any questions that you wish to ask? It includes the clerk salaries, expenditure, grass cutting twice, electricity, handyman, and the village hall car park repairs.
Can I just mention with the Village Hall car park repairs, just to mention that we've had, well, it comes on to the next item, that we did have the 250 in from the town trust towards the repairs, and we've also had an email from Julian thanking us for carrying out the work, and that the Village Hall committee were very appreciative.
So you can, yeah, okay, that's fine. So if there's no questions, I'll need a proposer that we pay all those.
All of these and the £1,700.
Yeah, it's actually
well,
2,040 because of VAT.
Thank you.
Have
We do need to vote on the payments as well as the bizarrely.
Well, if it goes into there,
It's all in one.
if Joe makes a note that it's as per the list plus the additional for the fireworks, I'll need a proposer for that. Kieran, seconder? Drawing, seconding. All those in favour? Just in time vote, he's got a keen interest. Well done, thank you. And we'll send a note to Fleming for the village car park repairs, thanking him for, because we've done it quite short notice, quite speedily, and that's good.
He's got to wait for his payment.
He has to wait for his payment, that was a bit embarrassing, so yeah.
He was very good about it.
So, yeah, if we could thank him for that, that'd be good. Okay, we mentioned 6.2 receipt of monies, which went for that. No other receipts,
No, just 250. Yeah.
Okay. Item number 7 is the council's items. Information only, no discussion, no decisions can be made. But if any councillors have got something they wish to draw to our attention, fire away, Doreen.
I'm sincerely hoping that we're coming towards producing a revised emergency plan.
Oh, right, okay.
We've had great help from Ken Harris, Andy Bush and Ian Stott. I'm hoping that it's been a long haul because it's quite complicated. That hopefully we'll have our last meeting to dot the I's and cross the T's and finalise it.
Right. Will that need to be brought back to the Parish Council for approval? I would have thought, as a Parish Council...
I mean, yes, I was going to...
Yes.
Yeah.
No, so when it's done,
yes.
you'll presumably issue it.
Yes,
and then we'll approve just read it through and what about standing orders and policies and things.
Yes,
right. Good.
And Joe, have you got the key for the Methodist Church?
I think so, yes.
Yes,
I have.
That's what I need to hold.
Right. Okay. I need to speak to them as well. Okay.
You see a CRB check, don't you?
Yeah.
The whole Methodist Church key. Anyway.
Joking,
because you get the key by going into the sunshine nursery.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's an issue we can resolve outside. Okay?
This is the WI grandmother you're talking to.
Just a...
I'd just like to bring to the attention of the council that at the moment speed watch sessions in the village are not running as normal. There's a new format being proposed and a new coordinator that our coordinator has to deal with. At the moment there's some issues around formatting and or shall we say information that will then go into the public domain, and that's been challenged back by our speed watch coordinator, and that needs to be worked through. So at the moment, if we hold a session, it's almost like a placebo session. The findings from that can't be put through with letters that would normally follow, so on and so forth. Correspondence has gone to the clerk. That clerk, has passed that on to HAT, so they're aware of it. There's a meeting, I believe, with the constabulary representative and the speed watch coordinator, Dave on Candless, this week. No doubt I'll get some feedback from Dave on that, and I'll make sure that's fed back. If it needs to be an agenda item for October, I'll make sure Joe gets that in good time.
Good.
Nothing from
Yep, two things. We said a while ago that we would have a look at the parish plan, we would review it, so just to kind of get that on the agenda. And the second thing is, refers really to something Ian raised earlier. The Cambridge County Council are inviting us, all councillors, parishes, etc., districts, to comment on their annual business plan review. So it was just to say, do we have anything we want to flag? It's basically how they're going to spend the money. So if we have any thoughts and ideas about what we want in this area, then I think we should throw it in the pot.
Okay. Thank you. Stephen?
Nothing from me.
Okay. 8, closure of meeting. So 9, 8, 2. Thank you very much.
Thank you.